Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome to today's edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show podcast.
Welcome in, everybody. Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. Clay and I both down in Florida right now. We'll tell you what's going on, why we're here in a little bit. Well, you figure out Clay's going to the Patriot Award. I figure we just get into it right away. Patriot Awards for Fox later tonight. My fiance will be there, which is great. She keeps Clay out of trouble. Make sure that there are no $70 tequila shots involved. Carrie will be there.
It's wild right now in the hotel at the Seminole down here, Buck. It's like if you're a Fox News fan, there's going to be like 3,000 or 4,000 Fox News super fans. It feels like a sports team is staying at the hotel. There are people literally standing outside of the elevators waiting to grab Fox News talent. They're doing all the shows basically down here in South Florida as soon as they come off the elevators. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I hear it's a great scene really down cool there. Event. So, and I'm going up to Palm Beach tonight. What's in Palm Beach, you might ask? Oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to be at Mar-a-Lago on Friday for the America First Policy Institute Gala. See a bunch of my friends up there, including the big guy. We're going to have a talk. We're going to see how he's doing, check in, give him a high five. Nice to see you, Mr. President. So we got a lot of things happening down here in Florida right now, as you know. A lot of things happening across the nation, including the GOP. Officially, we've been saying any moment now, officially, the GOP is taking the House. Now, for everybody, I just take a moment. We're all going to have a little exhalation together because this takes this midterm election out of the disaster category. It's firmly out of the disaster category. And you could argue gentleman's B minus, maybe. You know, I don't know. It's gentleman's B minus for an election, maybe C plus if you're a little bit of a harder grader. That's where we are on this. I just want to break. Oh, and some other things we'll talk about today because I'd like to give you a quick overview here. We're going to dive into what the House is likely to do and what this means here in just a moment. Some more on how we got here with the votes, the voting situation. FTX crypto, the second biggest donor to Democrats in this last cycle. This guy, Sam Bankman-Fried. There's just more and more stuff coming out. This is like a vortex of mismanagement, virtue signaling, financial destruction. Clay, they had meetings with this guy. The SEC chairman met with this guy to talk about how the SEC should regulate crypto. This is like the head of the SEC meeting with Madoff to talk about Ponzi schemes.
I can't read enough about this stuff, and I don't know what eventually the full story is going to be, but the Wall Street Journal had a piece this morning, Buck, that you and I were sharing before the show, where the guy who is now taken over in the midst of the bankruptcy said he's never seen a company this bad a shape in 40 years of doing this.
John J. Ray, the guy who has overseen some of the biggest bankruptcies ever. People usually think of Enron as among the biggest fraud bankruptcies. I think the biggest bankruptcy technically was Lehman Brothers, which obviously went bust and had a massive balance sheet. But John J. Ray said, Clay, to your point here about FTX, this guy's been doing this for 40 years, quote, "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. From compromised systems, integrity, and faulty regulatory oversight abroad, which means here in the U.S., to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals. This situation is unprecedented." End quote. Clay, the guy you bring in for the most catastrophic bankruptcies for the last 40 years is saying, this is the most messed up thing I've ever seen.
I don't see, what did Madoff get, 150 years in prison, something like that?
Something crazy like that, yeah.
I don't see, unless these guys make a run for it, I don't see how they aren't going to go away for the rest of their lives over these frauds and shenanigans. And we were talking about Theranos, the story about the fake, basically machine that could analyze your blood for illness for people out there. Bad Blood was the book, which was incredible. I know they've made a couple of miniseries and everything else about it. This actually looks like it's going to be even crazier than that. Well,
it's just on such a bigger scale.
Yes.
The thing about Theranos was that they were running blood machine testing technology and didn't actually have any technology, and it didn't work. And they at one point were considering, I remember from the book, sending people fake results on, things like an HIV test. I mean, think about the mentality there, right? Or I should say faulty results for things like that. They ended up, I think, holding back on some of that, but there was a conversation at Theranos about that. Holmes was the woman, right? Wasn't that her name?
Yes, Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes, who would give these interviews where she would
deep voice.
Do this. She wore a Steve's Job turtleneck and did this weird fake deep voice. But because she had big bug eyes and had blonde hair, it was Clay. It was crazy. The people she swindled into this. And the way this guy yesterday, I mean, you know what, Clay, we actually have some audio. I think I played it on the post-show pod. We need to play it on this show where he's like,
yeah, we're just going to stop climate change and we're going to save the whole world from all the bad things.
Oh, his voice is unbelievable. I heard that because I was on the way to the airport yesterday when you were closing out the show.
Play, yeah.
Yeah, and you did play the audio and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, if you wonder how fraud like this can happen, do you know that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, this guy who evidently perpetrated this massive crypto fraud, he's scheduled to be speaking at the New York Times Deal Book Summit next week. So if you're curious how a fraud like this could happen, it's so incestuous. The New York Times is not looking into any of the details here. They're literally bringing this guy to speak at a New York Times event. I think it's still scheduled on November 30th, which is crazy to think about. All these quote unquote illuminating and super successful
Speak truth
figures.
to power.
Yes.
Unless he's going to write big checks for us and come to our conferences, then it's a different game.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of crazy that he's going to speak. He was supposed to, when you look at this speaker list, Eric Adams is the first speaker, is the mayor of New York City, obviously. Next speaker, Sam Bankman-Fried. And then they've got the CEO of TikTok, chairman and CEO of BlackRock, Amazon CEO of Netflix. These are, it's really kind of wild to think about how incestuous this is. If you wonder, how does a fraud get this big? It's because even the elite journalists out there are helping to carry the water of how brilliant this guy is.
I mean, this 30-year-old is described as a vegan, polyamorous tech bro. Now, if you give your life savings to a 30-year-old vegan, polyamorous tech bro, who is, of course, getting meetings with Joe Biden and the head of the SEC and the whole apparatus. This kid, who kind of looks like if Frodo Baggins didn't get much sunlight and never worked out. This guy was able to completely turn the apparatus to his will.
Yes.
I mean, he managed to just pull the wool over their eyes. Obviously, with billions of dollars of other people's money to throw around, it makes it a whole lot easier. But Clay, when you see the people who are we're talking about this. I was going to talk about that. We'll come back and talk about the House and what all that means in a second here. The House of Representatives. That's obviously very important. But Clay, you see the celebrities.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is like the Fire Festival of crypto brodom, right? I mean, This is a fraud of a scale that is going to have. Look, we're down in Florida right now. A lot of crypto stuff has been going on, particularly in Miami, where you and I currently are. And when you see, I was looking for the celebrity list. There's already a class action lawsuit for $11 billion. Who are the people that were pushing this crypto? Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Shaquille O'Neal, Steph Curry, Larry David, all named in the lawsuit that has been filed in the state of Florida. Newsflash, everybody. He does have an amazing jump shot. I do not think you should take financial advice from Steph Curry. Gisele Bündchen is like physical perfection. I do not think you should take crypto and investing advice from Giselle.
We need to pull the Larry David commercial, because he was in a Super Bowl commercial, which cost, FTX like $7 million or whatever the heck it was in the last Super Bowl. And the entire premise of Larry David's commercial is that he doesn't buy into the idea of crypto. But it's like, all the great historical conventions like, oh, you're telling me the wheel's going to be a big difference maker. I just don't see it. We need to grab that video, that commercial. But Buck, all these guys are going to get massively sued. To your point, they don't know what they're doing. Their advisors were just like, hey, you should pitch crypto like it's Pepsi or like it's, Wendy's, which is typical of the kind of advertisements these guys do. They had no idea. What about Matt Damon? All these guys were doing
tons
crypto
of
commercials.
And just so everyone's clear, you have like Elizabeth Warren, who's always, we're gonna hold the banks accountable, and the rich and the fat cats, we're gonna just squeeze those fat cats until they're skinny. Elizabeth Warren does all this stuff about, holding power and finance accountable. Clay, people were investing billions of dollars into something where securities, which are an investment with that the SEC is supposed to regulate, you're investing in if it's a publicly traded company, it is a company. It has a balance sheet. It has earnings and losses, and there's something. A crypto is a bunch of numbers on the screen. You have the chance of literally losing 100% of everything you invest, and there's no underlying assets. There's no factory to sell off. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And basically, there was no regulation. I guarantee you, Elizabeth Warren in 6 months, it's just the Republicans plotting here.
And what we need to continue to bring home for everybody out there is, this dude was the second biggest donor to Democrats, almost $40 million. And in that audio you played, Buck, he was talking about giving them hundreds of millions of dollars in the years ahead.
$500 million next year. And they said he was going to be the world's first trillionaire.
I know.
I mean, and the whole thing was a fraud. So just the other thing too, all the people, you see these people and you think, they're really rich or they're really famous and they must be so smart. A lot of really rich, famous people are dumb as can be, super narcissistic, and make all kinds of horrific errors. They just got really lucky once, or they were just born really lucky. In the case of models and athletes, there's God-given talent.
There's no doubt about it. And I think it goes to, there's a lot of fraud at the inception, right? When you go look at this entire Sam Bankman-Fried ridiculousness, Firefest is, I think, a good analogy. I think certainly Bernie Madoff is a good analogy. It's kind of a mixture of both of those. They wanted it to be true. And I wonder how much of this crypto universe in general is totally built in a house of cards. And my big concern here is, at some point, are we going to see, almost 2008 style, Buck, some of these crypto exchanges have gotten so big that their failure transfers over into the larger economic marketplace.
Now you start saying, people might be wondering, I don't own crypto. Okay, well, do you have a pension plan? Do you have a 401k?
A lot of people had money with the crypto that had no idea they were doing it.
There's contagion. There's contagion for what happens here, and especially if people think they can get outsized returns and everyone's getting in, and there's pressure on these money managers to hit their numbers. And
that's right.
Things can get very ugly fast. But it really does all come down to, Clay, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Once again, the most simple truths are the ones that people forget in these kinds of situations. And people pay the price. The videos he has, little videos on TikTok with Tom Brady. Also, it's like Tom Brady was hanging out with the guy's a little weirdo. I mean, you look at this guy. He's living with 10 other 30-year-olds, all in the same apartment in the Bahamas, and they're apparently just like playing Dungeons and Dragons and doing other stuff I can't describe on the radio. And they're giving them billions of dollars.
Well,
I mean, this guy was getting sit downs with Biden.
I know. I mean, well, that used to mean something until Biden started interviewing people who became women 3 weeks ago. Let's by the way, also, as we go to break here, Buck, we may be able to announce Nancy Pelosi's official departure from the political scene. Because to your point on a gentleman's B- or C, or however you want to assess the overall midterms, I don't think it can be underrated. we may well have finally retired Nancy Pelosi. So we're going to get an update on that. She's speaking on the House floor as we are moving throughout the course of the program today.
You know, Clay's kids are absolutely loving the Tuttle Twins book so much that I'm going to get one for my nephew because I know he's going to love it. And they're not just books. They're opening up interesting discussions about things that really matter for kids' futures as well as for our country. Some teachers and some books in school focus on activism instead of education. These books counteract that. They protect kids from misguided ideas. Helping kids understand the logic, the beauty of personal liberty can be hard. These simple books with pictures and thought-provoking stories make it easy for kids to understand. There's a battle for our kids' minds. You on the one side versus the media, Hollywood, activist teachers, CRT, all of that on the other. You can have a powerful artillery round for the mind, if you will. You can get the arsenal of truth on your side with Tuttle Radio. Go to TuttleRadio.com. Get these life-changing books, the Tuttle Twins books, for all the kids in your life. You'll get free workbooks and 35% off. Just go to this website for the Tuttle Twins books. You're going to absolutely love them. TuttleRadio.com.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
The Monica Crowley Podcast is a whip-smart, fast-paced, sassy blend of politics, culture, history, and humor, all brought to you with the sunny optimism of Ronald Reagan's happy warrior spirit. Hi, I'm Monica Crowley, and I've served 2 American presidents, Richard Nixon in his last years as Foreign Policy Assistant, and Donald Trump as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. You've seen me on TV, read my New York Times best-selling books and popular columns, and now you can download my podcast, where you will hear one-of-a-kind insights and interviews. So join me on the Monica Crowley Podcast. It's true appointment listening. Join our legion of happy warriors here on the Monica Crowley Podcast. Listen to the Monica Crowley Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We love it here on Clay and Buck when we can share good news with you. We are a happy warrior, positive, the future is ours vibe here. And even after we have a little bit of a disappointing midterm, we got some good things today. The House is officially 100% in Republican hands. And let's do a quick moment here to thank New York, Florida, California for beating the odds in those states and some tough congressional fights going red. Without that, and also our friend Lauren Boebert, for example, out in Colorado, without some of these close races, Clay, we wouldn't have taken the House. I mean, it actually, if we didn't know, and we're going to get into some of these numbers in a second, but the big news that just broke as we were in commercial break is, well, we can hear it from her. Here's Nancy Pelosi talking about her future or not so future aspirations of what she's going to do in Congress. Play it.
My friends, no matter what title you all, my colleagues, have bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress.
Nancy Pelosi no longer even going to try to be in Democrat congressional leadership. Sometimes you got to just savor the small victories, Clay.
We retired her effectively as a leader. Now, she may hang on. There's talk that she wants her daughter to take over that district potentially in San Francisco. We'll see exactly how that goes. But again, I understand people wanted the red wave. You and I did. We wanted the red tsunami. We got some data for you on the House, but I do think you have to say, okay, the biggest part of this midterm was to ensure that Joe Biden could do no more harm. And we have now done that by taking the House. Now, still a lot of work left to do in 2024. As we said, basically the 2024 election has already started. I mean, Trump's already announced. You saw where it's already been announced that Joe Manchin has a Republican challenger in West Virginia. I mean, we're not stepping off the treadmill at all. This race is going to be continuing. Next big shoe to drop, I would say, is Joe Biden officially announcing his decision, which I would expect we'd get sometime after the first of the year, if he's going to be running, which you and I both think he is. It's ready. It's go time for 2024.
And I got to say, there is now. You mean on the congressional side?
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because I saw this piece in the American Spectator by Scott McKay, and I think he makes some really critical points. I pulled from some of this. This guy does a politics newsletter, I believe, called Hayride. I'm not familiar with his work from before. I do know the American Spectator, obviously. And Scott has this piece. It isn't time to care who the 2024 nominee is until Republicans learn how to beat Democrats at their own game. It won't matter. Now, there are a few very important insights, Clay, that I think this guy, Scott McKay, points out here or pulls out for all of us. First one is this. I want to start with this. He writes, well, the public did its job with zero effort on the part of the GOP. Voters went from -7 million to +5 million on the Republican side in 2 years. Let's just pause there for a second. He's pointing out, my friends, because a lot of you are saying, well, we thought there was going to be a red wave. There was a red wave. It just splashed in the wrong states. It wasn't distributed in the way that would be needed to get the victories that we needed. A 12 million vote swing in 2 years. Okay. The numbers are in. Just think about that. A 12 million vote swing. 5 million plus Republicans voted over Democrats this time around. So what he says here is that the red wave happened. It ran up against seawalls all across the country. That's really important. And then he gets into the basics here, Clay, is how did, and I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't want to read too much from this guy's piece, American Spectator, it's a great piece. How is it that someone like Kari Lake loses to Katie Hobbs? How does that happen? Well, because while we're sitting here saying Kari Lake, so compelling, so, fiery, has a vision, would do a good job. Katie Hobbs, and we mean literally during that month leading up to the election, she was overseeing the election and in the election and making sure ballots, out, ballots, counted, running the machinery of the election to her favor while we're sitting around saying she won't debate Kari Lake. She didn't have to debate Kari Lake. And she knew that. Now, I'll get into, there's another critical point here, Clay, just real quick. Everybody, one thing that comes through in this piece, it's not it was rigged or it was stolen in this or any election. It can be both. And if you don't address the way that it's rigged, it doesn't even matter because you're never going to get to whether it was stolen.
Yeah, and Buck, the way to bring this home, I think, for a lot of people out there listening, and I've been reading about these numbers as well. First of all, a 12 million swing is crazy, right? So you went from, according to the tally, 7 million more votes for Joe Biden in 2020 to 5 million more votes for Republicans in 2022. If you had told anyone that, like if you'd been able to look at the returns and analyze it, heck, if you had just looked at California, New York, and Florida and what happened there, where we effectively won the House, you would say, my goodness, there's going to be a red tsunami everywhere. What I read that is so important, I think, for everybody to understand, Democrats' get out the vote operation is so much more sophisticated right now than what Republicans have, that using Arizona as an example, they are able to bank millions of votes all over the country. And it's not just banking those votes that matters. They know who voted. So they can target on everybody who has not voted as opposed to having to focus on the entire get out the vote operation. I think this is important for everybody out there to understand. If you and your neighbor go vote and you are Republicans, but you wait until Election Day to do it, then they're continuing to pound you and try to make sure that you go out and vote. Once they know that your ballot is in and you are a high propensity Republican voter, they can go focus on somebody else down the street who may not be likely to vote. That's what Democrats did. They knew when they got their votes in, and they were able to go after a shrinking circle of persuadable voters and put all their attention on them. Hey, we need you to fill out this ballot. We need you to get out. Whereas Republicans are still trying to address a large majority. The other thing is, Buck, the late surges. When you look at Fetterman or you look at Mark Kelly, they've already banked millions of votes before the debate even happens in Pennsylvania. So you're continuing to go after a smaller persuadable asset, and so many people have already voted. It doesn't even matter if you get that late surge like I think Republicans did as much, because 60% of the vote may already be in.
And this is where I think it's so important that everyone understand who has concerns, particularly about what happened in Arizona. The people who are pointing out how this works are not saying there aren't shenanigans, but we got multiple problems here.
Yes.
And if these things aren't fixed, it's never going to get better in these states. And if you want to win the presidency, look, there's an argument to be made here that what really matters, because you're not, with Joe Biden in office, you're not going to be able to do great and amazing things, even if you have the House and the Senate. That's just a fact. So we're in a much better position running for the Senate next time around based on what turf Democrats will have to defend. We already have a majority in the House. Likely we can add to that majority. And obviously it's all going to depend on the presidential race. To win the presidency, you have to win these states. How do you win these states? That's what we are trying to focus in on like a laser. Back to this piece in The Spectator about Arizona. He said the proof is everywhere that this is how it works. Do you think it's somehow a coincidence that more than 70 of the 220-something tabulators in Maricopa County, almost all of them in Republican areas, suddenly went on the fritz on Election Day, and those ballots were collected and sent to a central office where they weren't counted for days while the public watched in suspicion and horror? You don't even need to count those ballots. All you have to do is weigh the boxes and do the math. You'll know how many other boxes need to come through the back door to offset the vote. I mean, he's laying out what the problems are here in the process overall, and they needed to be fixed, and they weren't fixed.
I'll give you a great example, too, Buck. Look at Florida. We knew exactly what the vote tallies were of early voting before we even got to Election Day. And we knew, for instance, that Republicans were going to win that race by a massive amount. I think every state needs to be putting out these early vote tallies to help be, first of all, more reliable. I think every state needs to follow what Florida does so they can have reliable data on what the voters did within a few hours after the polls close. But we got to get way more sophisticated. Look, you're in an arms race effectively. And if you are not trying to get all of your voters out to the polls as early as possible, and I understand because I like it, Buck. I like going in on Election Day and voting. I know a huge percentage probably of our listeners feel that same way. But, man, we can't be a party that focuses on just Election Day turnout. We got election months. And if you're not fighting the battle all month long and encouraging your voters to get out, then at the end of the process, you're not able to target those low propensity voters like Democrats have been able to do. We got to fix it. We got to get more sophisticated. The numbers were there. They just weren't there in the places where we needed them the most. And I will break down some more of that data for you in a little bit when we come back. But in the meantime, look, Buck and I sit in X chairs every day. Home offices, home studios, being able to work in an office setting. You know how much difference it makes to have a comfortable chair. Makes you more efficient, makes you more productive, gives you better energy at the end of the day. How often do you stand up? You've been sitting in a bad chair, back hurts a little bit, you aren't able to get as much work as you otherwise could. What if you had heating? What if you had cooling? What if you had a chair that massages you? That's what the X chair does. There are so many different types of really cool options that you can put on the best chair out there. A lot of you continuing to outfit your offices, and maybe this is a great gift for grandpa or dad, people out there, mom, grandma, people who work a lot in home offices, but you don't really know what to get them as a gift. How about an X chair? Just go check it out today. You can go get all their options. You can also check out the options when it comes to financing at xchairclay.com. Again, great gifts just in time for the holidays. Remember, we're only, crazily enough, 1 week from Thanksgiving. And you know how quickly after Thanksgiving we roll into Christmas. Go ahead and take care of some of your shopping today. Go to xchairclay.com. No other chair can compare to X-Chair. That's xchairclay, C-L-A-Y, xchairclay, C-L-A-Y.com now. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Encourage you to join the crew. Go subscribe to the podcast. Holidays coming 1 week from Thanksgiving. Then Christmas season will be here. New Year's, you're going to be on the road a lot. Why not join the monster numbers of people out there that are subscribing to the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show podcast? 40% increase in unique listeners in October for our biggest unique listening audience month ever. Thank you for all who have made that possible. We encourage you to go ahead and sign up. You can search out my name, Clay Travis. You can search out Buck Sexton. Boom. You'll be able to take the show with you no matter where you are for the holiday season. We're headed up. Now, I'm not sure if he's in Milwaukee right now or if he's in Washington, D.C. Senator Ron Johnson joins us, recently reelected. And, Senator, I want to start with this. Republicans have won the House. There was a report that you were visiting with Congressman Jim Jordan along with several other senators to help set up investigations into COVID, into Dr. Fauci, the origins of COVID, all of those things. It doesn't look like you're going to have the ability in the Senate to necessarily set the agenda for all of these hearings. But what will the House be able to do, and have you been working with the House side to help facilitate those investigations?
Sure. Well, obviously it'd be better had we won a majority in the Senate, and I'd be chairman of the permanent subcommittee on investigations with the gavel and subpoena power. But because the House won the majority, they will have subpoena power. We have, a number of offices that have been investigating, all the scandals throughout all these agencies, and we've been working together literally for years. So we just met to, again, I think, pledge cooperation, do everything we can. It is interesting with all these whistleblowers coming forward, and we encourage more to do so in federal health agencies, federal law enforcement, but they'll come to different offices. And, we all protect their identities, so it is important that our offices share the information. We'll have different whistleblowers, different pieces of information, different pieces of the puzzle. And so the good news is, certainly Senator Grass and I, our staffs have worked together very well. Senator Paul, we have very similar interests when it comes to a lot of the issues surrounding COVID. Representative Jordan, we've been working together for years. We've had staff go back and forth between our offices, so our staffs work together very well. So, and Representative Comer as well. So it's just a very good meeting. The whole purpose behind this, by the way, is to get to the bottom of things, to expose the truth, because the American people deserve the truth. So, again, it's disappointing we don't have the gavel over here on the Senate side, but in addition to subpoenas, which truthfully, with the Democrat Department of Justice, it's going to be difficult to enforce those. So we also have things like FOIA requests. I mean, one of the things we've done is the 4,000 pages of Fauci emails that were FOIA'd, that were received, heavily redacted. Our staff took a look at that. We identified 400 pages we wanted to look at unredacted. Now, it was like pulling teeth, but we've looked, I think, at 360 of those 400 pages. They confirm a lot of the cover-up from my standpoint, but it's interesting. We're down to about 50 pages. HHS will not allow us to see that. Well, that's kind of an interesting piece of information, isn't it? I'm sure that'll be some of the first documents that the House will subpoena, because the American people deserve to know what's under those redactions, those final 50 pages.
Senator Johnson's Buck, appreciate you being with us. And we know that, fortunately for the people of Wisconsin and for the country, you were able to win re-election. But it was close. It was closer than we thought it was going to be based on some of the polling. Clay and I have spent a lot of time speaking to everybody from pollsters to campaign consultants to people who are actually running in these races about the machinery. I just wanted to hear what you think about some of the after action criticisms about the GOP not leveraging, say, early voting, and also, are there any things in your state that are funky the way they are in, say, Arizona or Nevada that show a way that the Democrats are trying to rig the rules in their favor?
Well, first of all, and thank you for letting me come on, and thank your audience for their support. But you know how many times I came on and said, I just view this as a dead even race.
You did.
This is Wisconsin. The three races I've won, one was by 100,000 votes. The second one was 100,000 votes. This last one now is by 26,000 votes. You've all seen the county map of the United States. It's all red, except for some bright blue dots, right? Our states are the same way. So we have a far more difficult challenge, bringing out low propensity voters. Democrats, we believe, and we have to do an after action, we have to really analyze the data, but it appears the Democrats did a phenomenal job of focusing on Madison, Wisconsin, and focusing on the abortion issue, and sending people out with 10 names and getting those people to turn their absentee ballots, okay? So they did a good job. Our challenge is we've got to do that statewide. 30% of the votes in Wisconsin come from all the rural communities. It's a much more difficult task. But the other reality is that Democrats lie with impunity. That is the hallmark of the 2022 election, is Democrats didn't tell the truth at all. They couldn't defend their records, so they lied through their teeth. And unfortunately, the media, they're not journalists anymore, they're advocates, and they amplified those lies. So we have enormous challenges. I will say, in terms of election integrity, we had a robust election integrity component to our election. I was actually quite surprised that Milwaukee got their vote totals in pretty early in the evening. It was really the networks that refused to call the race, hoping that something would come up so that they could challenge and do a recount. But, that's why I all but declared victory kind of in the wee hours of the morning, because it was obvious. But I think our robust election integrity component really did discipline the process. We had 5,000 poll workers versus 1,650 the previous election. We had every shift filled with the election observers. They were allowed to observe. Now, we had to go to court in a couple of cases, but the things we did on the front end, I think everybody in Wisconsin, I don't think anybody's questioning the results. Let's face it, we had bipartisan results. I won, our gubernatorial candidate, other statewide candidates lost. So there's really nothing to complain about. But again, we really didn't see anything significant on the ground or on election night, because we deterred it by having observation, and we had poll workers.
Senator Johnson, this morning, and we're going to play some of this audio later in the show, the House announced that they're going to be conducting a real investigation into Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, potentially illicit relationships from a financial perspective with foreign adversaries. What can the Senate do to help that investigation? How important is it? I know you found yourself in the middle of this based on FBI helping to cover up for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's connection to him. How important is having the gavel in the House to conduct that investigation? What do you anticipate they're going to be able to uncover?
Well, again, hopefully the truth. But how we can all work together is, once again, we have different whistleblowers coming to our offices. Different whistleblowers have confidence in one committee ranking member versus the other. So we'll have different pieces of the puzzle, but we can all support each other's efforts. We've certainly have information from our whistleblower on the Hunter Biden, and I brought this up with Director Ray today at the hearing, that we have whistleblowers said they were not going to look at the Hunter Biden laptop, that they weren't going to change the outcome of the election again. Those are some pretty revealing pieces of information. Chuck Grassley has whistleblowers saying that the FBI had a scheme in August of 2020 to basically downplay the derogatory information. So, again, as corrupt as the Biden family is, as important, if maybe more important, is the corruption within federal law enforcement. And then, of course, you have the corrupt and complicit media. All these things need to be exposed. We've got, what I think is a great lawsuit with Missouri and Louisiana. We have that Attorney General now is a U.S. Senator-elect, Eric Schmidt, uncovering the cooperation, I'd say the collusion between the Biden administration and the big tech social media giants. So there's so much to look at. There's so much corruption. There's so much to be exposed. It's going to take a lot of bodies to do it. And so that's what we all have is we've got different investigators. We've got different people coming to us. We have different pieces of information, and we're going to cooperate as best we can, as much as we can.
Senator Johnson, you've got a 50-49 deficit right now. There's a runoff that's going on in Georgia. It was a 50-50 Senate 2 years ago. Could be a 50-50 Senate again. What is the difference from your perspective on 50-50 Senate versus 51-49 for people out there listening in Georgia or who may be thinking about donating money potentially to Herschel Walker against the Reverend Raphael Warnock? From your perspective, what difference does that make?
It's a huge difference. 50-50 Senate gives us equal representation on the committee. So in case of a really horrible nominee, we have a better chance of blocking it. Even though we control the House, we would not put it past the Democrats in the Senate, even though it would make no sense. They couldn't utilize blowing up the Senate, getting rid of the filibuster to really pass legislation with the House, but they just may do it anyway, just to get it done. And if it's 51-49, all they need is, we would need both Sinema and Joe Manchin to stand firm, but they still may be able to defeat that as well. So it's just too fine a line. And 50-50 is just so much better than 51-49. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a big deal.
Well, we're very happy to see that both Kemp and Trump have said they will be helping Herschel get across the finish line there. So some unity on the GOP side in Georgia that could have a really big impact as you laid out. Before I let you go, Senator Johnson, I've just got to ask you, I've got some data in front of me here. We're a week out from Thanksgiving, and there's always these fun charts of which states have what the most popular Thanksgiving side is in every state of the union. What is your favorite Thanksgiving side?
Man, that's hard to say, but it's got to be the dressing because it's kind of special when you do it. But you need all the things with it. I mean, dressing just by itself isn't good, but I mean, you need the turkey, the gravy, the dressing, the mashed potatoes, and the corn, and the sweet potatoes. I need it all. I have it.
He's in all of the above, Clay.
All right, last question for you, and it's a big one. I am a Tennessee Titan fan. Your Green Bay Packers, Senator, Thursday night football. My team is traveling up to Lambeau. You guys got a nice win over the Cowboys. Are the Packers back? Does Aaron Rodgers and crew get it done tonight?
Well, that looked pretty good, last Sunday. So, we've done it before. I mean, we won the Super Bowl after 6 losses or with 6 losses. So it's entirely possible. And you've seen our receiving core now step up the plate. It's entirely possible. What I can absolutely guarantee is that the folks in Green Bay will be very nice to anybody coming up from Tennessee. We're just very nice people.
It's a phenomenal place to watch a game. I'm looking forward to watching it tonight. Senator, so glad we got you for 6 more years. We appreciate you spending time with us.
Take care. Thanks.
Senator Johnson there. Clay, you know what the number one favorite side in Wisconsin is for Thanksgiving? Baked potato.
Interesting.
Which I was kind of like a little thrown by that. The Northeast, so Pennsylvania, New York, New England, dominated by love of Thanksgiving stuffing and sweet potato with marshmallow. Do you know what, in your home state of Tennessee, the number one Thanksgiving side, according to Thrillist, I don't know if that's like definitive,
accurate, but stuffing?
Hash brown casserole.
Oh, that is, first of all, I'm all about it, all right? Most people don't even have a hash brown casserole.
I don't even know what that
is.
I got to come back to Tennessee, the Travis household, to eat some hash brown casserole.
I'm going to call out Thrillist on this. We have a lot of pecan pie. We've got a lot of the marshmallow with the sweet potatoes, that combo. A lot of, greens on the side, all that stuff. But a hash brown casserole is not the peak of the Tennessee Thanksgiving staple.
Interesting. Texas, it's creamed corn. Florida, it is rolls.
Rolls are big in the South.
Yeah.
We do bread well down here.
So it's an interesting breakdown. You do get some regional regional stuff. But the funniest of all to me is Washington State. We love our Washington State listeners, but number one up there, roasted vegetables. Well, what kind of Marxist nonsense is that? Roasted
You know what
veggies?
I'm a big fan of that's probably going to throw you into spasms of outrage? Canned cranberries. I
like that.
I love the jellied, and I also like the regular cranberry. The only time you eat cranberry, really, I feel like, is Thanksgiving, a little bit of Christmas. I'm all about it. I love it.
And also, I don't know what Virginia's thinking here, but apparently in Virginia, the number one Thanksgiving side is macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese is a once-a-week dinner food. It is not a Thanksgiving food.
My
it is like
oldest
year-round.
son, a lot of times for meals when we're out at restaurants, will order mac and cheese with a side of mac and cheese. That's how much he's committed to the mac and cheese lifestyle.
That's what we call a boss move. My friends, business owners are taking advantage of a large refund program from the IRS, but it's not so well known, this program. If your business has 5 or more employees and managed to survive the pandemic, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. This isn't a loan. There's no payback. It's a refund of your taxes. How do you get your business this refund money? Go to getrefunds.com. Their tax attorneys are specialists in this little-known payroll tax refund program. They do all the work with no charge up front and simply share a percentage of the cash that they get for you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, even those that had an increase in sales. The team at getrefunds.com has already returned over $1 billion to businesses, and they can help you as well. Just go to getrefunds.com, click on Qualify Me, and answer a few questions. This payroll tax refund is only available for a limited amount of time. Don't miss out. Go to getrefunds.com. No risk, high reward. Getrefunds.com.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
The Monica Crowley podcast is a whip-smart, fast-paced, sassy blend of politics, culture, history, and humor, all brought to you with the sunny optimism of Ronald Reagan's happy warrior spirit. Hi, I'm Monica Crowley, and I've served 2 American presidents, Richard Nixon in his last years as Foreign Policy Assistant, and Donald Trump as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. You've seen me on TV, read my New York Times best-selling books and popular columns, and now you can download my podcast, where you will hear one-of-a-kind insights and interviews. So join me on the Monica Crowley podcast. It's true appointment listening. Join our legion of happy warriors here on the Monica Crowley podcast. Listen to the Monica Crowley podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, rolling through the Thursday edition of the program. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We were talking earlier about what the impact may be from the House flipping officially to Republican control. Kevin McCarthy, now the Speaker. There was a press conference this morning discussing Joe Biden, his connections to Hunter Biden, and the nefarious activities that could be involved from both of those connections. And I wanted to play a couple of clips here from, this is Representative James Comer talking about an investigation of Joe Biden, not Hunter Biden. And let's listen first to cut 1.
This is an investigation of Joe Biden, the President of the United States, and why he lied to the American people about his knowledge and participation in his family's international business schemes. National security interests require the committee conduct investigation, and we will pursue all avenues that have long been ignored. Committee Republicans have uncovered evidence of federal crimes committed by and to the benefit of members of the president's family. These include conspiracy or defrauding the United States, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, violations of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, tax evasion, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit money laundering.
All significant, Buck, and I think it's important to note, I want to play cut 2 as well. This is not just about Hunter Biden's salacious activities, the drug use, the prostitution, all of the things that he documented that he did, which are against the law. But this is about 10% for the big guy. This is about Joe Biden running a criminal enterprise through his son, Hunter. Listen to James Comer, representative from Kentucky, continue with this press conference.
Hunter Biden isn't this innocent guy that just got a bad rap because he had a drug problem, and the Republicans don't need to waste any time on Hunter Biden. We're not trying to prove Hunter Biden is a bad actor. He is. If anybody wants to disagree with that, then there's nothing we have to talk about. Our investigation is about Joe Biden. And we already have evidence that would point that Joe Biden was involved with Hunter Biden on his deal. So we want the bank records, and that's our focus. We're trying to stay focused on, was Joe Biden directly involved with Hunter Biden's business deals, and is he compromised? That's our investigation.
I just say this, man, as much as I feel like you're not going to get, obviously, Joe Biden in any kind of legal trouble while he's the president and controls the DOJ, because Democrats take care of their own. I mean, within the system, they don't even have to work for Joe as appointees. The deep state will protect him. But we've also got to do what we can to, we say fight fire with fire when it comes to elections, Clay. It's got to be the same thing with control of the House, eventually the Senate. Got to keep them on their back foot as well, because that's what they're doing to us all the time. And I think that's important. Make them make the case that Hunter Biden's not super corrupt, or Joe Biden isn't super corrupt, because he is. One of the many items that's become so much more expensive this past year is ammunition. If you're a gun owner, I'm going shooting in a few days. I can tell you the price of ammo is sky high, which makes it all the more expensive to train and keep your skills sharp. There's a newer way to train, though, and keep those skills top-notch. You can train without ammunition at your home using something called a Mantis X system. The best shooters do the majority of their training by doing dry fire practice at home. That's what Mantis X is, a firearms training system that is a no-ammo, all-electronic way to improve your shooting accuracy. It simply attaches to your firearm like a weapon light. You can use it at home or the range for training instead of using expensive ammo. The Mantis X gives you data-driven, real-time feedback on your technique and guides you through drills and courses. 94% of shooters improve within 20 minutes of using the Mantis X. This is a product now being used by Marines and Army Special Forces. It's military-grade technology at an affordable price. It's a must-have for every gun owner, so start improving your shooting accuracy today. Go to MantisX.com. That's MantisX.com.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interest. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
The Monica Crowley Podcast is a whip-smart, fast-paced, sassy blend of politics, culture, history, and humor, all brought to you with the sunny optimism of Ronald Reagan's happy warrior spirit. Hi, I'm Monica Crowley, and I've served 2 American presidents, Richard Nixon in his last years as Foreign Policy Assistant, and Donald Trump as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. You've seen me on TV, read my New York Times best-selling books and popular columns, and now you can download my podcast, where you will hear one-of-a-kind insights and interviews. So join me on the Monica Crowley Podcast. It's true appointment listening. Join our legion of happy warriors here on the Monica Crowley Podcast. Listen to the Monica Crowley Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.